Hello, my name is Gabe Drake, and I am the president of the Winchester High School National Honor Society. On behalf of our organization, I would like to welcome you to the 2020 Veterans Day program. Today, it is our privilege to say thank you to all of America's veterans and to let them know that we appreciate them for their service and honor them for their sacrifices. The price of freedom is high. We cannot afford to forget those willing to pay it. We celebrate America's veterans for keeping this nation the land of the free and the home of the brave. Please stand and join the members of the Winchester High School ASL class that are not currently in quarantine for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the band's performance of the national anthem.
In Flanders Fields. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from falling hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it tight. If ye break it, with us who die, we shall not sleep through poppies grow in Flanders Fields. These are the lines of the poem In Flanders Fields. This is a popular war poem that was written during World War I by a Canadian doctor. It references the red poppies that grew over the graves of fallen soldiers. The poem and the poppy flower are prominent symbols throughout the United States that are associated with Veterans Day and Memorial Day. When we see the poppy flower, let us think of our veterans. We would like to take this time to recognize a local veteran who attended our in-person program last year. William M. Bill Milliken of 100 of Winchester passed away on June 29, 2020 in Winchester. He was born in Scott County on September 18, 1919, and he graduated from Winchester High School in 1937. Bill worked for an oil well supply company until he was inducted into the U.S. Army in 1941. He served honorably in the South Pacific from 1941 until the end of the war. After returning home, Bill began his career in the Illinois Rural Electric as a lineman. He retired in 1981 as a breaker maintenance supervisor. He was a member of the Winchester First Baptist Church and the Winchester American Legion. Bill enjoyed playing golf and sharing stories with his friends. Today we honor Bill and thank him for his service during World War II.
A veteran is someone who, at one point in their life, wrote a blank check made payable to the United States of America for an amount up to and including their life. This is an important quote that certainly has meaning to all veterans and their families. Although we are not able to hold an in-person assembly this year, the National Honor Society recently interviewed 12 local veterans in an attempt to still bring their stories to you. These veterans were of different ages, they had many different jobs, and their years of service in the military varied. However, they all had one thing in common. They all put service to their country first. At this time, we would like to share some portions of these interviews with you.
My name is Miranda Joy Coltis Wood, and I graduated from this high school in 1954. And so then I went to Western Illinois University and graduated from there in 1958. And it was at that point that I joined the Air Force. And I ended up with 26 years and 1 month of active duty service.
My name is Emery Wood, and I had a total of 27 years of service in the United States Air Force.
My name's Chuck Roberts. I entered June 10th, 1969. I got home December from Vietnam, from December 22nd, 1970.
Jim Herbie Hart, my nickname. 3 years and 9 months.
3 years.
I got it early out.
What branch did
Army.
you serve in? The Army? All right.
My name is Rick Cruz. I currently live here in Winchester, Illinois. I am a partner in the law firm of Thompson, McNeely and Cruz, and I served in the United States Army from 1983 to 1987.
My name is Larry Evans. I was in the service from 1966 through 1970.
Matt Barber. I actually served twice. First time was August 2002 to August 2005, and then I got out in 05, and in 06 I got a packet telling me to go back to the Army. So I ended up serving the second time. I think it was January of 07 to June of 08.
My name is Mark Melanson, and I spent 13 years in the Army.
Scott Mason, 3.5 years in the Army.
My name is Drew Ducat. I was in for 36 years, 5 months, and 20 days. Wow. Both active duty and then Illinois Army National Guard full-time up until I retired in May of 2017.
First Sergeant Samuel Ford, retired. I spent 24 years in the service. I did almost 4 years of active duty Army and 20 years of National Guard service here in Illinois.
Adam Woods, and I was in from 2005 to 2013. I want to be a part of the best, and there was no way that I could. I always did everything in my life kind of, halfway. Never did anything all the way. So whenever I decided to join, I just thought, if I'm going to do this, it's going to be everything.
Well, I'll give you the watered down version. I chose the Army because I grew up as an Army child. Yeah. I was a dependent, and I understood it. It was very appealing to me. And while I was in college, I was watching the invasion of Iraq occurred, and I just felt that I needed to do my part and be a part of my generation's time.
So, it was kind of several things. I had, both of my grandpas had been in the Army and served during the Korean time frame. So that kind of played into it. And then I remember I watched movies. I know it sounds tacky, but there was a movie called Hamburger Hill that was pretty popular about the 101st, and Band of Brothers was big, which was about the 101st, and then Black Hawk Down was very popular, and the 101st had, that's what we did was fast rope and rappel and that kind of stuff. And I remember going by Fort Campbell as a kid and seeing all the helicopters, which seemed pretty cool at the time.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of, that's where I wanted to go, and I kind of had some lineage and kind of had a desire to go there, I guess.
My family has a long history in the military. Both of my grandfathers served. My grandfather, my mother's side, was in the Army. My grandfather, my dad's side, was in the Navy. My dad was in the Navy. When I decided to join the military, the thought of getting stuck on a boat at sea just didn't seem really appealing to me. I knew that I needed to find some form of motivation and self-discipline, so I wanted to be a soldier, so I joined the Army. The Marine Corps got me some motivation, but I didn't need that much motivation, so that was kind of out. And well, the Air Force is the Air Force, that was just out.
Well, I have to be honest about this and say that maybe when I was in high school and college, I didn't do very good research. And so when I was graduating from Western, I was a business major, and I taught accounting. And so I interviewed for a job in Monmouth. And when I got back to campus, I found out that, and I don't remember exactly how much they offered me, but it was less than a man who was also going to teach. And that was the point that I had not done very good research, but at that point in 1958, there were two pay scales, one for women and one for men. And so the military only had one pay scale, and there was no distinction between being a woman or a man. And I knew some people who had been in the military from Winchester, and so I checked around. The Air Force did not have a separate women's branch, and it was integrated, and so I chose to go into the Air Force. That's how I made the decision. So it was a financial decision, not knowing when I started, and looking around that there was a distinction between what you were being paid.
Start out, it was rough. I'd never been away from home, especially that far. Never really traveled that far. Like I said, I went to South Carolina, and the first couple weeks was pretty rough. They pretty much break you down and build you back up. So some of the things that stand out is going out, spending a couple nights in the woods, and you had to basically survive. They threw some scenarios at you. There was a couple nights we had rain. One night in particular we had rain and pretty much flooded out our tent. So we had to pack up and move out of there. So it was just like a little river running right through the middle of our tent for some reason. But what got me through it, friends and family. We got a short time to call home. So what we could do is pick up the phone and call and talk to your parents. Parents got you through a lot, but having friends and girlfriends along the way, they helped you get through it.
Well, initially I was a forward observer for artillery, so I went to basic and AIT at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, back in January of 1981. Probably the thing that sticks out the most to me, man, I was a 19-year-old kid going to, I'd never gotten up at 4 in the morning, even going hunting. So getting up at 4 in the morning every day, and back then the commercials used to say we do more before 9 o'clock than most people do all day. And yeah, get up and go run out 5 miles, come back, clean the barracks, then go to breakfast, and then by 8 o'clock get ready to go wherever class you got. So yeah, getting up 4 o'clock in the morning and going to bed at 9 o'clock at night, 2100, was something new for me. It was a unique experience.
So, whenever I went through basic training, there's certain I was in the infantry, so there were certain MOSs that they did what they called OSUT, one-stop unit training. So they combined basic with our individual training. So instead of doing 9 weeks of basic and then going and doing 4 months of training, they just combine it into one so they could kind of get you out quicker. You don't understand at the time that you're going through there why they do stuff, but they just don't let you sleep. I remember being asleep for an hour and thinking, after probably been there for 3 weeks, it all just kind of melted together. And at 2 o'clock, being woken up with a trash can hitting my my bunk, and that's how they woke us up. And we had one drill sergeant who enjoyed pushing over our bunks, which then would, or our lockers, and just be a domino effect. And they'd wake you up, and they do what they call smoke you, where they take you down and you do physical exercise for until they get bored, essentially. But at the time, it was like these guys are just mean. You know, I don't know why they're doing this. You know, like it doesn't. I just want to serve my country, kind of deal. You know, and it's for a purpose. It's catching you off guard, and they're making you do stuff. Sleep deprived, because that's eventually what you'll end up doing. And it's under reasonable times. You know, like they'll give you 30 seconds to get dressed, and you better have your boots shined and starched, and it's unreasonable. But it's all a test for mental stuff. But just remember, a real lack of sleep and a lot of yelling and a lot of running, and it's one of the last times I ever had a six-pack.
Basic training. Well, a little bit of a story. When I went in, like say April of '66, there was all the training was conducted at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. And there was I believe it was meningitis outbreak there, and they had to close the base. And they shipped us up to Amarillo Air Force Base in Texas. And along with that, they shortened the training from 6 weeks to 4 weeks, which I thought was a really good deal until we found out that they just put 6 weeks in 4 weeks. So we did the 20-hour bit, pretty much going, well, not sleeping very much, very little time, being very, very busy. Let's see, what do I remember about it? Strangely enough, I remember going to church because that was the one place they couldn't yell at you for 30 minutes. That was a very memorable moment every week for about 30 minutes. Remember the haircuts, which isn't what you think of as like a regular haircut. They skin you. Yeah. And top of the head and your chin just felt about the same when they got done with you. Lots of, obviously, marching, a lot of cleaning, just constantly going. It was just 4 weeks of probably the toughest thing I've been through. It survived.
Most vivid memory of going to boot camp was riding the train ride from Philadelphia to Sampson Air Force Base in upstate New York was in October. And when we got there on Sunday morning, the first thing they did is they took us to the dining hall for breakfast. And that was the first time I ever saw anyone put ketchup on their eggs. But no, I tell you, getting there and immediately seeing that there was some discipline and there was a definite way of going about completing boot camp, and the best thing you could do was be quiet and just do what you were told. And after having to sleep with a little stone for 4 or 5 nights so I could try to learn my left from my right, that was my most vivid memory. And I wasn't the only people that when they would say column left or column right went the exact opposite direction. So that's one of my most vivid memories.
When I was in the Army, I was airborne. So one of the one things you will never ever forget, and it depends on if you realize this or not, but one of the things you'll never forget is your first jump, for obvious reasons, and your last jump, if you know it's your last jump. I had a guy tell me when I was in, you know, he goes, remember how scared you were and how anxious you were on your first jump? He goes, wait till your last one. And I didn't understand what he meant. Well, when you're in the military and you're airborne, you have to jump on a regular basis to keep your jump pay. And as I was phasing out and I was out processing, I needed to get one last jump in, and I knew it was gonna be my last jump. And then all of a sudden it hits you, okay, I just have to do this one more time and not have anything go bad. And honestly, the anxiety of that last jump was as bad, if not worse than the first one, because I only gotta do it one more time and not have something go wrong, so.
This guy named Jerry Sleevey from New York, and he was a tracker. They trained trackers. If we got hit in the night, he'd be able to follow the trail and find them. So I used him as a point man. The point man was to clear the way for the rest of us. He was the eyes. He was always watching the ground for sights and sounds and everything. And we'd stopped one day that we were really grubby looking, and his pant leg was torn at the knee. And he stopped and was wiping the sweat off of us, and he felt something on his knee. He looked down, there was some string like that you could barely see strung across the trail, and it was a quarter-pound block of TNT that was waiting for us, and that's how close we'd come.
Today, I had both of my brothers come down to North Carolina to help me move home. My older brother and my little brother. And I had been working really hard to get this this award called a Navy Marine Corps Accommodation Medal. And I worked and worked and worked for that for 8 years. And my goal was to get that. I was a sergeant when I got out. And my goal was to get that as a sergeant. I only knew one other sergeant, his name was Richard Weichman, that had one as a sergeant and below. It's usually a staff NCO to an officer award. I mean, you gotta really stand out to get it. So they moved me down and had my little ceremony, and I left. And I got about 2 hours from base, and we were on our way home, and one of my staff sergeants called, Staff Sergeant Chung. He called me, and he said, "Hey, your Navy comm just came back approved." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Do you want us to mail it to you?" And I said, "You're not mailing me anything, because there's no way I'm ever going to get it." He said, "We'll be back." And I remember that day was the day that both my little brother and my older brother were there, and they watched me get that award, and it was awesome. Then we drove home, and I think I took maybe a week off and went and got a job and started working, and I farm now. That's what we do. It's being home and being back with everybody. Everybody always says, "I can't wait to get out of Scott County. I can't wait to get out of Scott County." I said it growing up, from the day I moved here to the day I moved away, and the day I moved away, I couldn't wait to come back. And I'm never going to go anywhere ever again. This is where I'll live my days out, is Scott County. It's an awesome place.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's the personality side of it. I was very much raised with discipline, but I was very much unruly. So, I mean, if you go back and ask like Miss Varner, if you go back and talk to her about me in her class, I very much remember being, which I think that's whenever she was starting there, was whenever we were there. But I remember several classes in high school and grade school, whenever I would just show up to my classroom and my desk was already outside. And that was just the way that it was. Me and a group of other friends, we were definitely unruly, but it gave me the discipline, but then the reason to be disciplined as well. I hated school, and I just, as Americans, we take a lot of liberties for granted every day, and I hated school. I mean, I'm pretty sure I was probably pretty close to failing and flunking my senior year. I mean, and so I say that because whenever I went to Afghanistan, probably more than Iraq, women couldn't be educated, and if they would literally kill the teachers, and then the girls would get the same, if not worse, and that was something like I had completely taken for granted. To be able to read and write is something that we don't think much about today. It's just school's a burden whenever you're going through it. But there were kids, younger than you guys, that were willing to risk their lives or You know, they would deform them in different ways if they went to school, but they were willing to do that for the things that we take for granted. So that is definitely, I mean, every day we take everything for granted, from freedom of speech to all this stuff, you know, that goes on. And I think it woke me up to what we're gifted, not what we have.
Yeah.
You can watch each of these veterans' full interviews on the school website at the National Honor Society page. On behalf of the National Honor Society, I would like to thank all of these veterans. Colonel Joy Wood, Lieutenant Colonel Emery Wood, Specialist 4 Herbie Hart, Sergeant Charles Roberts, Sergeant Rick Cruz, Staff Sergeant Larry Evans, Sergeant First Class Mark Melanson, Specialist Scott Mason, Colonel Drew Duquette, Staff Sergeant Matt Barber, Sergeant Adam Woods, and First Sergeant Sam Ford. We would also like to thank the Winchester VFW Commander Matt Barber for his help with this project.
Thank you to my sister Taylor and my grandpa Jerry. I love you.
Thank you, Dad and Grandpa.
Thank you, Uncle Austin. Thank you for my dad, Adam.
Thank you, Fred Lawson.
Thank you, Uncle John.
Thank you, Poppy, for being in the military.
Thank you, Grandpa.
Thank you to my dad, Stephen Stewart.
Thank you to my Papa Jerry.
Thank you to my uncle and Chase Burke.
Thank you to my grandpa, my dad, and my uncle.
Thank you, Papa Jimmy.
Thank you, my grandpa.
Thank you to my cousins.
Thank you, my Uncle Lucas.
Thank you to my great-grandpa and my grandpa.
Thank you to my brother, Jared Bigham. Thank you, Papa, for being in the Navy.
I'm thankful for my grandpa, Larry.
Thank you to my dad, Josh. Thank you to my Uncle Kurt.
Thank you, Georgette Arnold.
Thank you, Travis Liddick.
Thank you, Grandpa Gilbert and Grandpa Ronnie. Thank you, Dad.
Thank you, Pop Roger.
Thank you to my grandpa who was a National Guard. Thank you for my grandpa that was in the Army.
Thank you to my dad.
Thank you to my Papa Jerry. Thank you to my uncle who was in the Army.
Thank you, Grandpa.
Thank you to my mom.
Thank you to my Grandpa Holby. Thank you for my uncles. Thank you to my dad. Thank you for my cousin Tyler. Thank you for my dad, Matt Bobo. My dad, Sam Ford. Thank you, Michaela.
Happy Veterans Day!
The song Taps is a distinctive bugle melody that dates back to the Civil War. Taps would signal lights out for soldiers to go to sleep. It is often played at U.S. military funerals and memorials. Please stand for the playing of Taps by Will Mason.
Today, the public will recognize and honor our veterans at an 11 o'clock ceremony at Monument Park in Winchester. Mr. Vortman will live stream the ceremony on the school's YouTube channel for all students to watch. We encourage you to watch this ceremony. We also encourage students to remember that they are always invited to this ceremony to honor our local veterans in person. Let us always acknowledge the importance of supporting our local veterans. To all veterans, we thank you for your courage, strength, and dedication. We recognize and honor you for keeping us safe. Happy Veterans Day.